Good evening and welcome to CYC News for the 26th of March 2017 and the 17th of Bottomheart 17:33 AM. I'm Mira Gerges. In today's headlines, Council plots to demolish heritage-listed church in Sydney, Australia. London attack, assailant shot dead after 3 killed near Parliament. Clashes break out in Damascus after a surprise rebel attack. Trump welcomes Iraqi PM Abadi to the White House. Israel threatens to destroy Syrian air defenses. And why flu shots fail even when the match is right. To Coptic news. His Holiness Pope Tawadros II travelled to Austria on Thursday for treatment. His Holiness has been suffering the last few months, with pain in his spine and his leg, which hasn't been cured with medication. His Holiness Pope Tawadros II is being treated in the hospital where his health file is recorded, the same hospital after he had visited Greece in December 2016, when he unexpectedly returned to Cairo when the terrorist attack at St. Peter Church took place. The Coptic people of the world are remembering His Holiness and praying for his health. In Australia, in 2 weeks, the last heritage-listed site in Sydenham is being demolished and made into yet another dog park. The site is currently St. Mary and St. Mina Coptic Orthodox Church. It was previously a Methodist church and is also a war memorial site. Former Marrickville Council, now the Inner West Council after the merge, have neglected the site to deliberately lead it to become a demolition by neglect, which is against the regulations of the local heritage listing. The community are outraged. However, the council refused to listen. The National Trust, Marrickville Heritage Society, federal and state MPs, and ex-Deputy Commissioner Nick Cowdos all opposed the demolition. This issue has been ongoing since 2003. Council have, behind closed doors, been deciding to demolish the site despite the national heritage relevance advised by Professor Paul Ashton, who prepared submission for the state heritage listing. Prof. Ashton writes, "It is a prime example of a heritage site that reflects the cutting edge of heritage practice, which deals with affect and empathy. This is a site that real people have real histories with. It is a powerful and significant tangible memory place." Bishop Soriel, Bishop of the Diocese of Melbourne, and Bishop Daniel, Head Abbot of St. Shenouda's Monastery, have written to the Premier of New South Wales stating they oppose the demolition. Bishop Soriel writes, "This was the original site of St. Mary and St. Mina's Coptic Orthodox Church. It was established in 1969 when the first Copts, having migrated from Egypt, established a small church community at this site. This is the first church purchased by the Coptic Orthodox Church outside of Egypt. It holds not only significant religious value to our community, but cultural and traditional values as well. By allowing the church to be torn down, it is not only deleting the foundation of the Coptic community in Australia, but also those that built and established the site to honour the armed forces that served and died for this great nation. There are currently 100,000 Copts in Australia today. They are sad and unhappy that this site is under immediate threat, and we respectfully ask that you intervene and do whatever is in your power, through the grace of God, to stop the demolition." The Australian Coptic Heritage and Community Services, the ACHCS, is desperately seeking to stop the demolition on behalf of all the community. All Australians are requested to write to the Premier State MPs and local MPs. Over to the United States. A fire broke out at a church owned by a white supremacist in North Dakota, leaving only the steeple standing and the rest of the property in charred ruins. White supremacist Craig Cobb is listed on the deed of the Zion Lutheran Church in Nome, North Dakota. CNN affiliate KVRR reported. The Barnes County Sheriff's Office told the affiliate that it received reports about the fire on Wednesday afternoon. But by the time firefighters arrived at the scene, the church was engulfed in flames. Cobb bought the church this year, according to the affiliate. It's unclear whether he lived in the church. Jill Pedersen, who took a photo of the flames swallowing the church, grew up in Nome and attended the church. Pedersen told CNN, "My mum would clean it every week and I would tag along and get up there and pretend to preach to an invisible crowd. In a small community, you are all family, and that church kept everyone connected in some way, and that is what will be missed the most. The cause of the fire was not immediately clear. To the London attack. 3 people were killed and scores injured when an attacker ploughed a car through crowds in central London before attempting to storm the Houses of Parliament in what police believe was an act of Islamist-inspired terrorism. Police indicated that they knew the identity of the assailant, who fatally stabbed unarmed police officer Keith Palmer, a 15-year veteran, on the grounds of Parliament after ramming a car into the crowded sidewalks nearby. Armed officers shot the attacker dead. It was the first mass casualty terrorist attack in Britain since 2005, when 52 people and 4 attackers died in the July 7 bomb attacks on the London public transportation system. The use of a vehicle as a weapon of terror echoed the methods used in the past year by attackers in Nice and Berlin. The London assault, which came on the 1-year anniversary of the ISIS bomb attacks in Brussels, brought to carnage Westminster, the heart of political life in Britain. Prime Minister Theresa May described the attack as sick and depraved. She said attempts to defeat through violence the values Parliament represents would be doomed to failure. Ms May states, "The location of this attack was no accident. The terrorists chose to strike at the heart of our capital city, where people of all nationalities, religions and cultures come together to celebrate the values of liberty, democracy and freedom of speech." Parliament was placed on lockdown for several hours and lawmakers were forced to remain in the main debating chamber of the House of Commons as officers rushed to the scene outside. Pictures showed scenes of carnage in the aftermath of the attack, which happened as Parliament was in session. One member of the British government gave mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to the officer who died from stab wounds. Rebel groups who launched a surprise attack in northeastern Damascus were taking advantage of Syrian regime forces being overstretched by fighting elsewhere in the country. The clashes, which broke out Sunday in the Syrian capital, reported by opposition groups, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and Syrian state media. Damascus has not seen such attacks in months, if not years, said SOHR Director Rami Abdulrahman. Since the start of the conflict, the Syrian regime and allied militias have held a tight grip in the capital. The opposition has only a few pockets of control around Damascus, including a part of the district of Joba. The rebel fighters began the attack from the area of the city. The assault was led by Islamist groups including Ahrar al-Sham and the recently formed umbrella jihadist group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. Syrian state media reported that Syrian forces had repelled an attack by jihadist fighters, who also used tunnels to attack government positions. ISANA, the Syrian state-run news agency, quoted a military source Monday saying the regime was recaptured all positions in the industrial area the armed groups infiltrated on Sunday. However, Faylaq ar-Rahman, one of the rebel groups taking part in the Damascus fighting, issued a statement on Monday, saying the attack was ongoing in the capital. There was no words on deaths. According to Andrew Tablar, a senior fellow in the Arab Politics program at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, the clashes come at a time when the Syrian regime has been weakened in the capital, located in the south of the country, due to its focus on fighting ISIS in Raqqa, in the north. Tabler said the regime only has about 18,000 in deployable manpower and they're being pushed by Russia and the Iranians to go and fight for Iraqi. This has left them vulnerable elsewhere. They're spread too thin and this has allowed rebels to advance. Lena Khatib, the head of the Middle East and North Africa program at Chatham House, said this is the first attack in Damascus of its kind by rebel groups that, until now, had been operating mainly in northern Syria. She sees it as a signal that one of them, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, is raising its profile. This attack in Damascus will show other rebel groups it is capable of delivering results, she said. The assault comes after a series of suicide bombings that have hit the capital in March. Syrian state news reported that on Wednesday, suicide bombings struck a courthouse and restaurant in Damascus, killing more than 24 people and injuring others. What happens next will depend on how Russia and Iran respond, according to Had, a Syrian writer and a researcher who is an associate fellow at Chatham House. US President Donald Trump has met his Iraqi counterpart in Washington, D.C., praising the unprecedented cooperation between the two countries in ridding Iraq of ISIS and reaffirming the US commitment to bolstering the country's security. Trump met Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi at the White House on Monday, with both leaders praising the partnership that has seen significant gains in retaking territory, including progress in liberating Mosul, Iraq's second-largest city, which has been under militant control for 3 years. A White House readout from the talks stated that the two leaders agreed that the United States and Iraq will pursue a long-term partnership to decisively root out terrorism from Iraq and strengthen the Iraqi military and other key institutions. The two leaders agreed to promote a broad-based political and economic partnership based in the Strategic Framework Agreement, SFA, the bilateral agreement which has been the cornerstone of US support of Iraq since 2008. Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman has warned Syria that Israel will destroy its air defense system if Syria fires an anti-aircraft missile at Israeli aircraft again. Speaking on Israel public radio on Sunday morning, Lieberman said, "The next time the Syrians use their air defense systems against our airplanes, we will destroy all of them without thinking twice." His threat comes after Syria fired anti-aircraft missiles at Israeli military jets overnight from Thursday into Friday. The Syrian military said the jets struck a military site near Palmyra, while Israel says they targeted a weapons shipment to Iran-backed Hezbollah. Syria claims their missiles downed one Israeli jet and hit another, which Israel rejected as absolutely untrue. The outspoken defense minister said, "Our central problem, and this above and beyond all of the other issues, is the transfer of advanced weapons from Syria to Lebanon. Every time we identify a transfer like this, we will work to prevent the transfer of game-changing weapons. On this issue, there will not be any compromise." Lieberman has not shied away from threatening rhetoric since taking over the defense ministry last year. In 1912, a trip on board the Titanic was the ultimate in luxury travel. More than a century later, it still is. Deep-pocketed tourists will once again get the chance to glide along the Titanic's deck when London-based travel company Blue Marble Private begins dives to the wreck site in May 2018. Interest in the 20th century most famous maritime disaster has remained high since Robert Ballard and his team discovered the remains of RMS Titanic almost 32 years ago. However, this could well be one of the last opportunities to visit. A 2016 study claimed that a recently discovered extremophile bacteria could eat away what's left of the famous shipwreck inside 15 or 20 years. To health news. In 2009, 2 flu vaccines manufactured by the same company did not equally protect against the circulating H1N1 flu virus. A study published on Wednesday in the journal Science Translational Medicine examines the question, why did one vaccine over 35% less protection against the flu? The less effective vaccine failed to activate dendritic cells, which are key to the immune system's defense. The researchers discovered, and it failed to stimulate an early immune response. Vaccine effectiveness for any given season varies, in part, based on how well the vaccine matches the circulating virus strains. Sometimes, a vaccine corresponds to the predominant virus, and yet its effectiveness is not what scientists would hope. Trying to determine which element of the vaccine failed is a challenge. For the new study, Shruti Athal, first author and a researcher at the Baylor Institute for Immunology Research, investigated the interferon responses to the 2 vaccines. Vaccines work by eliciting an immune response. In order to do this, they have to be recognized as foreign material, said Dr. Matthew Collin, a professor of hematology at the Institute of Cellular Medicine at Newcastle University. One of the key responses to pathogens or foreign material is the production of chemicals called interferons. The cells that produce this essential interferon and dendritic cells, noted Collin, who was not involved in the research. And finally, in sport. As FIFA's Secretary General, Fatma Samba Diop Samora is one of the most powerful figures in world football. Her appointment last June was historic and groundbreaking. The 54-year-old from Senegal is the first woman and the first non-European to hold an executive post at soccer's governing body. Nearly a year into her role, Samora talks exclusively to CNN Sport about major issues plaguing the game, from inequality and racism to hooliganism and corruption. Since May 2015, when the US Department of Justice indicated several top executives, FIFA has been engulfed in claims of widespread corruption. While Gianni Infantino promised to restore the organization's reputation upon his appointment as FIFA's new president, Samora is intent on ensuring there is equal representation of men and women at all levels of its hierarchy. Samora told CNN, "We are regenerating the organization in many ways. The facelift is still ongoing and we would like to see more women in senior positions." When you look at FIFA at the low executive level, there are more women than men. In fact, 61% of women and less than 40% men. But as we are getting higher to the football governing body hierarchy, today we are only 42% of women, and definitely the target is to have, by the end of the first mandate term of the president, 50% representation at all levels, including at all levels in the confederation level. And that's all for CYC News. A reminder that you can watch this news bulletin again throughout the week on YouTube. I'm Mira Gergis from the CYC studios in Sydney, Australia. Have a good night.